Hey everybody! So the theme today is evasive fears. The reason I'm exploring this topic, I posted a short, this was like a couple weeks back, that it's time to face your fears, is what the short basically is saying. I had a comment in there asking, well, how do you face an evasive fear? And I thought, evasive. So what does that mean exactly? A fear that isn't really there, like an illusionary fear? And I took some time to think about this because I made a point I was gonna do some kind of commentary, either that was gonna be a write-up or I was gonna make a video about it. And I've been taking some time to think about evasive fears, which I'll be honest, everything is in divine time. I mean, I did this video on the anti-life path, which I've been thinking a lot about. Why did I make that video? And then I'm getting all emotionally derailed here, exploring a message that I'm trying to reach a certain caliber of beauty with Aphrodite that I just can't reach. And I want things to be more beautiful all the time. And having to embrace that the person that I am is who I am, whatever that is. You know, I think like everything about life is kind of an evasive fear. Everything about life. And I think now's the time to be exploring, well, what are we afraid of? Like, what am I afraid of exactly? The things I used to be afraid of, I have conquered so many fears. It seems like all I'm left with are fears that don't even make any dang sense, you know? Some things I used to be afraid of. So I've been on a long quest to, man, I mean, even looking back at time, it's like so long ago, but it really wasn't that long ago. And where I was at that time in my perspective of the universe and myself in it, and the spirit realm, and the people I was talking to, invisible people that I was talking to, the exchanges that were going on, all the crazy stuff that I've experienced. I'll just get to the point here, but one of the fears was I was afraid of being tortured to death. It's not just being tortured to death. I was afraid of alien beings taking me from a place that was outside of my control, and that I would have to endure an unthinkable, unimaginable concept of being tortured. Whether I would die or not die, I might as well have died, and that it would be outside of my control. So is this an evasive fear? To most people, that just sounds ludicrous and absurd, the most laughable thing anybody could ever say. I'm afraid of being tortured by alien beings. You guys have no idea how horrifying that fear was for me. And what even brought that to the surface was some movie that I'd watched, and it was about Nome, Alaska. That movie spoke a language to me that opened up a pocket that could not be closed. It just blasted something open in me, and I felt like I related to everything about that movie. Can't even remember what it was called. I just remember Nome, Alaska. And all of a sudden, I became terrified of alien beings. I became terrified of them. And I was reading, I can't remember what this book was. You guys understand, this was like probably 13 years ago, 14 years ago. And so much has happened in my life that your memories just get all a blur and you can't really remember specific details other than kind of the details are like this. Well, I was terrified of alien beings and I was trying to reconcile that. I remember reading some book, I don't remember what it was called, but it was this guy's experience with extraterrestrial, specifically gray aliens, and then how he had to conquer his fear. And by wanting to conquer his fear, not run away anymore, but actually face these strange visitors, it helped to build a different kind of relationship with them. It's almost like he accepted this weird part of his life, and he wanted to just go as deep into the rabbit hole as he could, not by trying to hide or be afraid or run away or make it go away, but just accept it as this way. And that story freaking threw me for a loop. I was getting past life readings because I was trying to understand if there was something unreconciled in my soul about alien beings. All the while, I talked to God, I talked to the universe, and I had strange visitors that I determined, I mean, they were in my mind, they were definitely alien beings. They looked like alien beings. They were strange, okay? And I remember telling them that I don't mean to be angry and I don't mean to hate you. I mean, I'm pretty vocal, like with my, like, what is hate? Hate is almost a rage level wound of emotional agony that is unreconcilable. And it's somewhere in between being unimaginably angry and unimaginably sad and unimaginably defeated. And it's like, I either hate myself or I hate somebody who's created this unimaginable wound. And so I hated alien beings, okay? And so even though they were friendly and they were nice and they were kind, I always had this like instantaneous wall up that is like, get the F away from me, okay? I want to kill you. I want to rip you apart. Like I would just feel that way. I can't hide it. You can't hide anything in the energy world. We can hide things from each other, but when it comes to the energy world, you can read each other like a book. You can play pretend all you want, but it's laughable. It's like, hey, I'm this beautiful, awesome person. And we're all just looking at you like, wow, thank you for giving us the illusion of who you want to be, but who are you truly is who we actually want to get to know. So in the energy world, it's all very clear. You can't hide. And so it's kind of one of the fun things about being human is you can be the illusion of whoever you want to be for yourself and others. You can lie to yourself. You can lie to others. You can do terrible things. You can hide if you want to hide behind terrible things, whatever you want to do. Like you have the freedom to do it all here, you know, which is why being human is such a unique experience. Well, anyway, can't really hide my feelings. So when I talk to these visitors, you know, so Avery, the human alien, and Praying Mantis Man, and Emerald, the horseman. These are like names that I gave them. Ipagus, actually, he told me that his name was Ipagus, which I used to call him Ipagus, because that's how I was like, I-P-U. I was just like, he would spell it in my head. I'm like, Ipagus, you know? Okay, your name is Ipagus. And then I had a friend like, Ipagus? Ipagus? And I was like, oh, that's pretty. Maybe his name is Ipagus and I just pronounced it wrong. He never minded, you know. And then Avery, he actually spelled his name. He didn't spell it. He just like said it in my mind. And I was like, yeah, your name isn't Avery. And I was like, no, maybe your name is this. Oh, wait a second. You just told me your name and I renounced it. All right, fine. Your name is Avery. But I would always make it clear that I had this overwhelming feeling. I couldn't make it go away. And right now your energy is making me want to do terrible things in my energy field to protect me from you. And I went through this whole long spiel of working through my fear of alien beings torturing me. Okay. Is that an evasive fear? Like, is that even real? It's as real as I could comprehend what reality is. And so, yeah, it's a real fear. But is it a real fear or is it an evasive fear? Literally, that event of the Nome, Alaska, and the book that I read, and the past life readings, and the interactions with interdimensional beings, which I could see in my mind, I could see their appearances. It's not like I was just daydreaming and making things up. It's like this information appears to you, not because you put it there. And also the exchange isn't something that you're just creating and animating the puppet images that you create for yourself. This is like, no, I'm allowing those images to animate themselves and communicate with me. And so that's the difference between a human being working through their own imagination and creative exploration of reality versus a human being allowing the creativity to have its own mind, to have its own personality, and to ask it questions and to see what echoes back. And that is where you get to the next level of what is a psychic ability. We all have that. We're all born with this. I don't know. People don't seem to like the word psychic. I don't know what other term. It's not an intuitive ability. Is it a creative ability? So then it's being psychic creative thing. Well, if you just allow yourself to go in that place that you would consider your imagination is not so imaginative because you're not going to control it anymore. You don't control your mind. You let your mind speak to you. You let your body speak to you. So when it has an ache or a pain, your body is communicating that something isn't right. That's its vocal cords. That's its language, right? And so I allow communication to come in from the universe. And so that was one of my fears. So naturally, I'm making this video talk about evasive fears and how do you even face them? Well, how did I face that? Let's call it an evasive fear. I acknowledged there was something up. And it was so loud and uncomfortable that I wanted to tell myself that this whole thing was just a fictional story and I'm acting absurd and there aren't any alien beings. I was so overwhelmed and unable to cope with that fear that I had to tell myself things like alien beings aren't real. None of this is real. I'm just being silly, until I couldn't really. I had to actually say, okay, let's actually say alien beings are real, because I'd rather say alien beings are real than say alien beings aren't real, because I really do feel like there's more to the universe than just human beings. I think it's kind of a self-absorbed concept that we are the only creations in the universe is so huge. It's absurd. And it's not just in this like realm of what we see, it's in the realm of everything that we see and don't see, is also overlapping, intertwined, interdimensional, time and space, all that stuff. We're inhaling and exhaling every lifetime we've ever lived and ever will live. And the concept of transformation from one cycle of eternity to the next cycle of eternity, we literally are part of every single thing. So the more you expand the reality of every single thing and that you're a part of it, the closer you are to correct about how crazy big this whole thing is. Like it's like the whole idea we could be just a cell in the body of a bigger being. And it just looks like planet Earth and the universe and stuff. You know, like we've already, that idea has already been presented to the human race before, but it's just like some kind of, I don't know, hippie, trippy, hippie, you know, mushroom trip kind of idea, but it's real. Like, I feel like there could be a science around this. Maybe that's what physics is. Anyway, so how did I work through the evasive fear? Let's just consider this my evasive fear. I acknowledged that I was terrified of something that I think it was very obvious to say I was afraid of alien beings, and it seems stupid, but it was real. And the ways that I worked through making that fear disappear was by actually tucking myself in to a more comfortable closet that said alien beings aren't real, so then I have nothing to be afraid of, which was just kind of creating an evasive truth to an evasive fear in order to cope. But I didn't want to live in that reality. I want to live in the reality that alien beings are real, so I have to then face my fear of alien beings. I slowly but surely worked my way into asking myself, what is it that I'm afraid of when it comes to, let's just take alien beings out of it, just being tortured. What makes me afraid of that? And my answer to it was that I was afraid of how I would cope with it. And then I had this conversation with myself and I said, okay, well, if you're being tortured to death, how would anybody cope with it? And in my mind, I'd see these like Hollywood movies where you see somebody being tortured and they're like screaming, or they're not screaming at all. And it's like, well, I'd like to not be screaming while I'm tortured to death. And it's like, so what if you're a baby about it? So what if, you know, getting your fingernails ripped out and your eyeballs cut out of your face makes you scream? And I mean, this was like devastating to have this conversation with myself about the reality of being tortured to death. And then I had to move it to another reality where the alien beings were the ones doing it. And what I hated most was the fact that there was no true understanding between us about what was being done to me that was unimaginable, and then what they couldn't understand or what they needed to take from me in order to help them in their own life. And it started to become an overlay of human society. And how was I, a child, treating, you know, the bugs that I was torturing, or ripping their wings off or ripping their legs off because I was just curious and I had no real understanding that these things had feelings, you know, until there was this time, I made a video about this a while ago. I was just a little kid, probably 3 years old, and there was all these daddy long legs along the side of the house. And so I was out there, and I always liked daddy long legs. I was always like kind of attracted to them, like specifically daddy long legs. They were like my thing, okay? And I was attracted to them because they were spiders that couldn't hurt me. And they were so weird. They had these like hair-like legs and these little round bodies, and they were just so weird. And so I remember there was one day I was like pulling the legs off of them. And then I would have like one that would have no legs, and it'd just be this like little body. And then I'd have one that just had like missing one leg, and then one that was missing 3. And I just like see how they were reacting to the changes that I was creating with their bodies, okay? I'm just like this innocent child trying to understand what this is, okay? Well, there's this nature spirit that came, and there was like, oh, it's kind of like a loud clap or like a huge lightning bolt or something that was like very aggressive. And all of a sudden, it was a female energy. And all of a sudden, I was put into the bodies of those daddy long legs for a brief second. It was so horrifying. I literally came back to myself because I literally got to know what I was actually doing. And it was so horrifying, and I felt so terrible about it that I smashed all the daddy long legs and ran away. And I didn't know what to do after that. But you can see how the overlay of my fear of being tortured to death, and then being tortured to death by alien beings that then were controlling a situation that they couldn't understand what they were doing to me, then overlaid here my inner child, innocent childhood moment of torturing daddy long legs without really understanding what I was doing, now understood what I was doing, and the mortifying reality of these overlaying events. It still took me a lot of years to actually feel safe around like these interdimensional conversations. So while they're so wonderful, I still had that lingering. Some things you just can't make it go away. I mean, I'm convinced that some of this stuff is just part of the fabric of who we are. And so either A, I will lie to myself and tell myself the reality I live in is the one where there aren't any alien beings, feels like a lie. And that doesn't work for me in my reality, so I choose to live in the reality where there are alien beings and then face this properly with some strength and courage. Not that things just fix at the snap of the fingers. You actually have to go through a window of time. And you actually have to have solid conversations with yourself. Say, what the heck is wrong with me? Well, what are you really afraid of? Well, I'm afraid of that. Well, eventually I finally said, and I'm not afraid of being tortured to death anymore. The reason I'm not afraid of it is because I know it's not going to be pleasant. And there's no way really to cope with such an unpleasant experience. And so why would I be afraid of something that I already know is not copable, unpleasant experience, that a bad time and place might put me into it, and it just is what it is? What am I going to do about it? And now if that happens to be alien beings, then maybe this guy's story and how he dealt with his fear, that was his reality, might come in handy for me dealing with my reality if it comes to this. And I concluded, though, because this is a learning process that takes years of time, at that time, I concluded that sharing an energetic spite or hate or rage and visualizing these alien beings being like put into a blender and that I'm going to hurt you with my mind was one way to protect myself. Because that's kind of what we do as human beings. We create a shield of hell in order to protect ourselves, when really we need to be creating a shield of love, which, when I went and visited the Arcturians, this was, I don't know, maybe it was in like 2019 or 2018 or something, for the first time. I made the video and there was this like very annoying, I was staying at an Airbnb. It's like you stay at an Airbnb for a couple of weeks. You kind of live there for a few weeks. Anyway, it was a basement space and it had this really loud furnace. And it would go on and off, and it would turn on and off during this video. But I had that, again, that anger. See how recent this still is? This anger towards alien beings. And I specifically hated, okay? The word hate is like true here. It's like if you even think about messing with me, I will mess you up with my mind, okay? That's how I was with these Arcturians. which, you know, I do journeys, and like anybody that comes to me to try to mess me up with their mind, like these days, just makes me laugh hysterically, because it's like, okay, mess me up, do your darndest. It's hilarious. Only in the energy world, though, I tell you, it's really funny. So I know that that is what I sound like when I tell these Arcturians, I'm gonna mess you up. I'm gonna do terrible things to you if you mess with me. And it's just like, it's gotta be so laughable, because it would be laughable to me, okay? Anyway, remember that I had to go through this weird, that's right. It was, oh. See, I have so many experiences, I can't even keep up with them all. That was actually, that's why I respected the Arcturians, because they took the fear out of me. I wasn't able to get to talk to them until I went through this like membrane of cleansing, okay? And in this membrane of cleansing, and I don't really recall, I mean, I probably have to revisit that video. I just kind of recall this membrane of cleansing. It showed me something about the power of love and why love is the most powerful shield that we have. Because you can't access... So if you have a shield of love that is of the highest vibration, then only that which is of the highest vibration can come in and out, and it's a breathable membrane, okay? And so imagine that planet Earth had this breathable membrane around it that is like angelic quality, like high vibrational heaven quality membrane. Anything dark that would want to visit planet Earth, if we had this, would actually have to go through the cleansing membrane and let go. Release a lot of this energetic buildup and weight, let go of it, and in order to access, so that it would be their highest vibration that would be working with, that we'd be talking to. So imagine that, right? So the Arcturians, to get to them, had to go through this high vibrational membrane, which then helped me to release my anger, my rage, and my hate towards this whole alien being concept, which is a lot of years coming, okay? It could be 10 years, for God's sakes. Like, I mean, it was a lot of years. It was in my 20s that this all started. Anyway, yeah, so it was the Arcturians that really took the edge off with that. I really respect them, because they're really, when I communicate with Arcturians, like, my experience of them is, like, really getting to the point, without all the wishy-washy in the way. And I find that wishy-washy is kind of an emotional attachment thing. I've got a lot of wishy-washy because I explore a lot of a spectrum of emotions and a lot of spectrum of reflection, from the darkest to the lightest. And I explore, what is my reality based on? What am I afraid of in that reality? And what do I not want to be afraid of anymore? How long is it going to take to conquer an evasive fear? You may never conquer it. Don't worry about it. But these are just an example. The steps and the lifelong process and everything I've learned because of that weird evasive fear, you know? And so be grateful for your evasive fears. So yeah, I mean, I like the Arcturians because they're just like, they get things down to a point that you can't really argue with. It's almost like it simplifies, takes away all the emotional attachments and simplifies it like any question down to a point. And from that point, it's like, oh, well, yeah, okay. That's true. I never thought of it that way because I had all this emotional weird stuff in the way that I you know, so they're really good with clarity of mind, clarity of perception, clarity of, you could even say that their feelings are in their mind and they bring their feelings into balance with their mind and their perceptions of things. So it's like a very clear mind brings very clear emotions. That's why I like working with them, because there's something simple about it. I don't know why I have to make it so anti-simple. Maybe it's more fun that way. I don't know. Anyway, so alas, I'm making this video to talk about evasive fears, and I didn't really know what I was going to say about it. But when I started to write, I was like, man, like the perfectionism in me, it's like, again, it's perfect paragraphs, and this sentence leading into that sentence leading into this paragraph, and it just takes so long. And maybe it's a little more, you know, friendly to just talk about things, and whatever I feel inspired to share might actually be exactly the message I need to provide when it comes to facing an evasive fear. I think the timing is all correct here because it's so weird that short, you know, talking about facing your fears. I don't even know what the future holds, and yet I'm entering into a future where this conversation is like of the utmost importance. And I'll tell you another thing, because I'm like backtracking into the past and how it's very interesting now in the future that I'm reflecting on all this stuff, especially the last couple of videos I posted. But I made this like February energy update. The energies this month are great, which is true. It was like the most positive video. It was so wonderful. And usually when the energy gets really, really positive and really, really bright and really accessible, a lot of options and wheels are turning and things are flying by, usually that energy is going to have an opposing effect. That could be like you just got this, I don't know, UFC fighter slammed into the ground and you're just like, blah, 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 blah. What the hell happened? Like, what happened to my joy here? Like, what happened to my energy and my vision and my articulate productivity? Now I'm just like I don't know, a bug hit the windshield and I'm just oozing down the window and I don't know what happened. So usually when the energy gets really bright, it has this opposing effect because it gets in there and washes out those like inner wounds that we can't wrap our head around everything. And then we start to feel the inner wounds releasing. And then that's where the like, oh wow, I just got body slammed comes in. But really it's all releasing out. And so in the releasing out phase, we usually feel emotional, confused, that sort of thing. So, alas, I make these videos, I talk about the anti-life path. Where is that leading me? I'm doing all this organization stuff and it's like, yes, this is good. All the while I'm getting into this weird place with, I knew there was a thing calling me and my insecurity and my shame and my vulnerability, just be my authentic self. So that could be an evasive fear. An evasive fear to be your authentic self. My authentic self could be a crybaby. Come on, like, I don't want that to be my authentic self. Like, I don't want to share that with people. It's not like very professional. But it's reminding you and reminding me that we're human. And so if it's an evasive fear to be human, like you could see how anybody could spiral away from being their most authentic self because they'd rather be their professional self, or they'd rather be something of the clean cut with a nice car self instead of the self that has a, gambling addiction or something. It's like the things we hide. What this reminds me of? Church on a Sunday. Way back when, church on a Sunday. Everybody shows up to church on a Sunday looking good, Sunday best. But that these people are just the same old sinners that we all are outside of church on a Sunday. And it's like, we have to come and be our best presentation of self, because why would we come in dragging our sloppy selves in as the sinners that we are? We got to look our very best. We got to be our very best, right? All the while we're trying to understand, life after death and how do I vanquish these sins of mine? How do I conquer it? I just want people to see that I'm a good person. But I don't really know how to be a good person. So we just tuck that into the background where nobody has to know what I'm doing behind closed doors and who I really am in secret. Evasive fears. So alas, I made those like vulnerable messages with all of you. So I am a human being. I get cooped up. I don't always feel that bad, but sometimes I do feel that bad, And sometimes my greatest fear is being tortured to death by alien beings. And that actually becomes one of my life stories for years. Now here we are. Like, what will the future hold? I don't know, but this is my present. So I'm going to sum up this whole video on evasive fear. And I'm going to ask you a question. Now that you've listened to this video, what have you learned from this video? Like, what have you learned from this? Like me talking about my story and what I've seen, what have you learned from this that might be helpful in your life? Like, what are you going to do next? So sometimes we know the evasive fear, like we know what we're afraid of. We're afraid of heights, or I was talking to myself about this heights thing. Like, let's say we're going to use this example of heights, because I actually do not like standing near the edge of a cliff. I don't want to go over there. Is it because I'm afraid of heights? Or I just don't like looking at the difference between where my feet are standing and what's way down there. Like I don't like looking down at the difference in height between here and there, okay? So it's not that I'm afraid of falling. I just don't like the look of it. So do I need to work on that inside myself? Maybe. I don't feel like it's calling my name here in this lifetime to reconcile what freaks me out about where I'm standing on the cliff's edge versus the ground that's way down there. I don't even want to get close. I don't even want to know. I don't even want to know about the distance, okay? So you could say I have a fear of heights. I can ride an airplane no problem, and I don't mind looking out the window, but put me in real life, even though an airplane is real life. I don't know. Maybe to my brain, it's more like a movie. But once it's real life and I'm actually, my feet are on the edge of a cliff and I'm looking down, I'm like, I'm done. I'm not doing it, okay? I don't want to do it. I don't need to do it. So, again, evasive fears, like, what is it that you're afraid of? Like, is it really that you're afraid of that? Are you really afraid of heights, or maybe you just don't like the distance between where your feet are and the ground, you know? Now, if it's, I don't like heights, I can't fly in an airplane, maybe that is one where, well, it would be more convenient if I could take a plane than if I had to drive places, you know? So maybe that's one where it's time to step into conquering it. Well, how are you going to do it? You know, you could say my fear of alien beings torturing me might be easier than the fear of a physical plane ride, because you're going to actually have to put yourself into the physical reality of sitting in the experience of that which you are afraid of. Yeah, but you can see there's steps involved here. Acknowledging what you're afraid of is step number one. You know, I didn't realize that these insecurities that I had, that I made these videos to cry and feel weird about it later, I was actually afraid of being authentic. And I don't like sometimes my style of authenticity. I like somebody else's style of authenticity, that I see their style and it's like, I want to be your style. I don't want to be my style. And so I resent myself. Like, how deep does the resentment go? I mean, I don't think it's really that deep. But then when I feel like that, it's terribly deep. You know, we have our like ebbs and flows, you know. But that was me being afraid of being my authentic self. And then challenging myself to be my authentic self with all of you, and then go through the shame of what I just put myself through, you know, so I could digest it and try to heal a wound in there somehow. You guys helped me big time. Work through a thing, you know, you let me just do this thing, work through the thing. And now here we're doing another thing together in an Evasive Fears video. And you guys told me that I can talk for a while and that's okay. And then, I don't know, that's probably my evasive fear, that people don't want to hear what I have to say in 30 minutes. They'd rather hear what I have to say in 60 seconds. So it's like, is that an evasive fear? Is that even a fear that I don't matter? My voice isn't going to be heard, that I desperately need to be heard in order to feel better about myself? Do you see why evasive fear is such a complicated concept? Like, what are the illusions that we're working with, that we're trying to solve, that we're trying to conquer, that are probably going to be there for the life? And they become the tools that help us to become more interesting people. So go evasive fears, right? All right. Thank you all so very much. Really enjoyed making this message with all of you. I hope you're all doing well, enjoying the energies of the time. And that's all I got for now. Bye for now.